We have a guest with us for a little while. Mike Hurst joins us this morning, chairman of the Mississippi GOP, former U.S. attorney. Mike, I got a picture from one of our elected state representatives during the break. People have kind of been sending Election Day updates from all over the place. He was in line at Gluckstadt, and I think this was inadvertent. He just sent me a picture that was kind of showing me the line.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the picture, and I zoomed in. And about halfway up, just as clear as day, you have an active service member in uniform with his wife and 2 kids. And it's like...
That is fantastic.
I got chills when I looked at it. It's like, that's what today is about.
Absolutely. No,
across the board.
That's incredible. Yeah, I drove by my polling site this morning in beautiful Sand Hill, Mississippi. And it was long lines out at 6:45 a.m. this morning. So people were fired up. People were enthusiastic. I think we're going to have a lot of Republicans show up at the polls today.
Yeah, that certainly is the hope. There reports from all over the state have been, long lines, but lines that are moving and pretty efficient so far today, which is certainly good news. You're going to have some stuff. I mean, somebody said, a couple of machines that had broken in Saltillo, they'll get those fixed as quickly as possible. It's probably a day where we have to exercise a little bit of patience along the way, but everything seems to be running pretty smoothly.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly right. And I think the lines, I'm hopeful the lines may not be as long as normal because we've had so many people take advantage of our laws relating to absentee voting. And we've had an incredible surge in absentee voting. If you look at 8 years ago when President Trump was elected, I think Mississippi had about 100,000 absentee ballots sent in. Now we're well over 200,000. So we've doubled that in just 8 years. So really proud of folks who are taking advantage of that law and exercising their right to vote.
Yeah. Glad to be with you this morning. Yeah. And I should have said thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming in.
Yeah. Early start.
That's right.
It is his birthday, too.
Oh, happy birthday. Should we sing?
That?
Yeah.
I already did the Mexican mariachis for me.
Well, happy birthday. Everybody go vote for Richard Cross.
Do not write me in.
No, don't vote for him. Vote in honor of his birthday.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get. I was
going to say that would not be good for my marriage.
I don't know. We might have some fun, Richard. Who
knows? Who knows? Closing arguments. And I don't think we've talked about this. Donald Trump was on stage in Grand Rapids, Michigan, at 2:15 Eastern time this morning, and then flew home to Florida and got back at 5:30. Any questions about stamina?
The guy,
can we just set that to the side?
He's built differently. I mean, there are some people in this world that can get 4 hours of sleep and function like a normal human being. This man, it's like he almost never sleeps. I mean, it's absolutely incredible at his age how he just keeps going and going. He's the Energizer Bunny, and that's who we need as president. And that's why I'm excited we're going to vote him and elect him as president today.
One thing, you have people on the left actually criticizing that he stays awake, that he has stamina, and then you have the other that he's too old. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, Mike.
Well, I think I saw that Vice President Harris's last campaign speech was 9.5 minutes last night, and Donald Trump went for almost 2 hours till after 2 a.m. in the morning in Grand Rapids, had his entire family on stage with him kind of issuing that. And I thought it was really fascinating to him to say, in some ways, this is sad. He's like, this is it. This is the last one of these. It's been an amazing journey, an amazing ride. This is the third time he has gone through a presidential election cycle, and he doesn't. Unlike everybody that has served in this office, he doesn't look like he's aged a day.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty incredible when you look back. My wife and my daughter and I were in Georgia this past weekend, and we were going door to door in Georgia, knocking on doors. And, Harris was in Atlanta Saturday. Trump was in Macon, Georgia Sunday. Vance was in Atlanta last night. I mean, it was incredible to see the amount of signs, the amount of flags, the amount of people walking and talking, and just, I mean, again, the enthusiasm. I think we have the enthusiasm, but I have to measure that with, please, all my Republican friends, do not think this is a red wave. Do not think we have this in the bag. You have to get out and you have to exercise your vote today.
Visiting with Mike Hurst. He's the Mississippi chairman of the GOP, former U.S. attorney as well. And Well, we'll switch it in the next segment. We'll switch over. We'll talk some of the state races and some of the things on the Senate and the House side and some of what's going on right there. But just focusing on the presidential race for a few more minutes. You said with great optimism a second ago that, we're going to vote Donald Trump in as president. I understand that in the position in which you serve, you need to be optimistic and you need to be maybe the biggest cheerleader there is for GOP candidates, especially in Mississippi. But I sense some confidence as well. From where, for you, does the confidence come that is numbers based?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's numbers and anecdotal. I mean, we in the who are in politics, we were all around in 2016 when we saw this up-and-comer, upstart, no politician guy named Donald Trump run for office, and we saw the enthusiasm and the backing he had in 2016. A lot of people didn't think he was going to win, and he pulled it off. This time, I can just say it is different. It is absolutely different. Online, in person. I mean, I just haven't seen energy and enthusiasm like this maybe in my lifetime, frankly. And when you put that enthusiasm and energy with the numbers that we're seeing, with him leading in every battleground state, and tied in, Michigan and Wisconsin, that is incredible when you compare it to 2020, when you compare it to 2016. I mean, we're going to win states like, I think we're going to win Michigan. We're going to win Pennsylvania. We're going to win Georgia. We're going to win North Carolina. I mean, I think we'll see early in the evening tonight if those three states on the East Coast, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, come in for Trump. I think we're going to have a huge, huge night.
You think we're going to get answers on those three states tonight?
I'm optimistic. I do. I know a lot of people don't think we're going to know tonight. I think we're going to know tonight. I was talking to a good friend of mine up in Pittsburgh.
But that means it has to be overwhelming, right?
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine in Pittsburgh this morning, and he is on the ground. He is well plugged in. He believes that Trump's going to win Pennsylvania by 100,000 votes. 100,000 votes. And to put that in context, 4 years ago when Trump was running in Georgia, you're talking about, I think it's close to 3 million votes in Georgia. Trump lost Georgia by 12,000. 12,000. Isn't that incredible? And right now he's leading in Georgia. He's leading in North Carolina. He's leading in Pennsylvania. And again, it comes back to a few things, in my opinion. The economy. Kamala Harris talks about how she wants a new way forward. We're going to fix things. Well, what the heck have you been doing the last 3.5 years? It's hard to say you're the change agent when you are the incumbent, when you're running as the incumbent and you haven't done anything but made our nation worse. So the economy, first and foremost, Trump's going to bring prices down. Securing our border. We in Mississippi have experienced firsthand an open border. Terrible, heinous crimes committed by illegal aliens in our state, not just to mention throughout the country, but in our state. And we have to secure the border and then just bringing down crime. I believe the first responsibility of the government is protecting the citizens. And if we don't have law and order prosecutors out there, a law and order Department of Justice who prosecutes crime and doesn't focus on political enemies, I think that makes Americans safer. And I think those three issues will really resonate with Mississippians and Americans.
Mike, going back to what we were talking about a second ago, third time that Donald Trump has gone through a presidential election cycle. In my view, this is by far the most disciplined campaign he has run. Now, Donald Trump is always going to have his eccentricities, right? He's going to weave. He's going to go off. He's going to ramble. He's going to say things that not everybody likes. But in terms of staying on message, I feel like he has done a much better job through this cycle than he has in the previous two. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And the guy, love him or hate him, he is the most brilliant marketer, the most brilliant promoter that I think we've ever seen in politics. Whether it be the photos and the videos at the McDonald's, or whether it be conducting a press conference from a garbage truck. The best thing I think we have going for us as Republicans is that they brought Kamala out of the basement, that they have allowed her to speak. And I think the American people have seen that. I think the American people are very smart, and they can see through all the political rhetoric, and they can see, is she qualified to be president of the United States? And I think tonight they're going to answer a strong no, and they're going to elect Donald Trump.
And they did it out of necessity, right? It was a catch-22.
Absolutely.
If you leave her tucked away and nobody knows who she is, it's going to be hard for her to win. But if you bring her out and you let her talk, it's going to be hard for her to win.
And remember, Americans should remember that when she was asked what she would do differently from President Biden, she said absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Mike Hurst, Mississippi GOP chairman, former U.S. attorney. We've got more coming up with him, more coming up with you. This is the Gallo Radio Show on Super Talk Mississippi. We're back right after this. Bob in Gulfport got in and out in 5 minutes. Good for you, Bob. Glad you were able to get in line and get that vote cast. Voting in our polling location in Flowood. Got in line at 6:45. Polls open at 7. In and out in half an hour. Getting pictures from a lot of your polling locations as well. And hope you will keep it up throughout the course of the day. I want to read you a question, Mike, from Alan in the Delta. And I think this is a really important question. Mike Hurst is our guest on the Gallo Radio Show. He is the chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party, former U.S. attorney. Alan says, if Trump wins, will he have support from Republicans, or will it be 2016 all over again with Republicans fighting amongst themselves? And I think Alan asked this with the backdrop of a very real possibility that Republicans have the majority in the House, the majority in the Senate, and the White House. And so will they, this time, be able to get stuff done?
Yeah, I absolutely. It's a great question. I'm excited about the Senate because if we look at the Senate, we're going to pick up West Virginia, we're going to pick up Montana, we're going to pick up Ohio, which is incredible. And then I think we've got a real shot to pick up Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So we could be 3 to 6 additional seats in the Senate and take the Senate back over. And that's huge for Mississippi because Senator Roger Wicker will be chairman of the Armed Services Committee. In the House, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is very close with Trump. I think we're going to have a new majority leader if the Republicans take back the Senate. And I think with Johnson, the new majority leader, and President Trump, I think you're going to see a new Republican majority across both branches that work together, closer together than we ever have before.
Yeah, so Mitch McConnell out as the majority leader. Who do you anticipate that's going to be?
Personally, I think it's probably going to be John Thune from South Dakota. He's been in leadership in the Senate for a number of years. He's very well respected, well liked, and I think he would be an incredible majority leader. But that right now, if I'm handicapping picks, I would say John Thune.
You mentioned Senator Wicker, and he's running for re-election today, facing off against Ty Pinkins, who we noted yesterday. We were talking with Sid Salter. I think Ty Pinkins is to be commended. Has run a very good race. Has been diligent. We talked about the fact that he has quite literally run across the state of Mississippi, county to county. Clearly, it is a very tall uphill climb to take out an incumbent senator, especially a Republican incumbent senator in Mississippi. But if Roger Wicker wins this race with Ty Pinkins, which we expect to be the case, and if the Senate majority exists, you mentioned Armed Forces Chair. First time since Senator Stennis was in that position with a Mississippian there. What could that mean for the Mississippi Gulf Coast, for the shipbuilding industry, for some of the defense industry that's in our home state?
Yeah, the first question, Richard, I would address is if you haven't run for political office, you have absolutely no idea what that's like. And I agree with Mr. Pinkins. Qualified, put his name on the ballot, has run a race out there. But if you've never been humbled, just sign up to run for office, whether it's local school board, election commissioner, or governor of the state of Mississippi. It is incredibly hard work, raising money, getting around the state. So yes, I think everyone that signs up and does that should be commended. Your second question, what it means to Mississippi for Senator Wicker to be the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, I think it's huge. I mean, think about all the military that we have in our state, whether it be, as you mentioned, the Huntington Ingalls on the coast that builds our warships, whether Camp Shelby, the Air Force bases, the Navy bases. I mean, we have an incredible base of military operations here in the state of Mississippi, and I think with him being in that position, it would only increase it here in our state. It only brings in more opportunities, more jobs, more companies that look at our state as an opportunity, as an alternative to build more plants here, to give our people more jobs, and I think it just benefits our state tremendously. We've
got the judicial races going on in Mississippi, and those are nonpartisan races, but the Republican Party has endorsed some of the candidates in those nonpartisan races, which is a little bit of a, I don't know, small needle to thread with the way that we're. Maybe there's nothing to hold the party from issuing those endorsements.
No,
right?
there's this little thing called the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. It's kind of a big deal, Richard. The legislature when the
thanks for the reminder.
The legislature when the Democrats controlled it said, you know what, we need to be nonpartisan in judicial elections, and I appreciate the sentiment, but at the same time, you as a legislature cannot restrict Americans' rights to exercise their First Amendment rights like the freedom of speech. And so way back in the early 2000s, we, the Mississippi Republican Party, actually sued the state, and a federal judge overturned that state law that said, people could not endorse candidates. And so we've been endorsing, the parties have been endorsing judicial candidates since the early 2000s. And we've endorsed Jennifer Branning here in the Central District of Mississippi for the Mississippi Supreme Court. And, I would just encourage you all, the person she's running against, incumbent Jim Kitchens, has been on the court a number of years. If he's reelected, he will be almost 90 years old. And just to put Mr. Kitchens in perspective, he started running for office and was elected to office before Joe Biden was. I mean, he's
not Joe Biden, the president or vice president. You're talking about Joe Biden, the congressman.
Did Joe Biden, the president of the United States? Mr. Kitchens was elected to office before I was born, to put it in perspective. Okay. And so that's what we're talking about.
I mean, you look like a young guy.
Jennifer Branning is incredible, from Neshoba County, state legislator, just a constitutional conservative who's going to cause balls and strikes on the court and is not going to legislate from the bench, which is what we want here in Mississippi. The other one I would say is incumbent Justice Dawn Beam in South Mississippi. She's been on the Mississippi Supreme Court for years. She's done an incredible job. She has a number of challengers, but she is another one that the Mississippi Republican Party has endorsed and we think would, really hold our values on the Mississippi Supreme Court.
Visiting with Mike Hurst, chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party, former U.S. attorney.
Richard, can I say one more thing? We haven't talked
please.
about the congressional races, and, obviously our three congressmen, Trent Kelly, Michael Guest, Mike Ezell, are incredible, and we want them to be reelected, and they will be reelected. But we haven't talked about Congressman Benny Thompson. He's a Democrat covering the 2nd Congressional District. We have a good candidate, Ron Eller, who is running against him. Mr. Thompson, your listeners may remember, was head of the Homeland Security Committee in the House, was head of the January 6th Committee in the House. He really has a target on our president, President Trump, and even so much so that he introduced a bill in the Congress that would eliminate Secret Service protection from President Trump. Now, he's had 2 assassination attempts. President Trump has 2 assassination attempts, and this man wants to do that to President Trump. I mean, for 30 years, Benny Thompson has represented the Delta and the 2nd Congressional District, and all he has done is enriched himself and made our citizens worse off. So we need to elect Ron Eller and defeat and kick out and fire Benny Thompson from that position.
He has had a stranglehold on that congressional seat for a long time.
He has. He's got to go. He's got to go.
The Mississippi Delta is still a wonderful place, but it has not exactly been moving in the right direction in terms of economic development.
No, and he's done nothing to improve it. All he has done is enriched himself and made his control and his power and his authority more at the hands of our people. And people in the Delta and people in the 2nd Congressional District have to see that. They have to know that, and they have to put a stop to it. And we have to fire Benny Thompson. Look, nobody thought we could beat Gene Taylor on the coast. Longtime Democrat, very popular, but you get too close with Nancy Pelosi, you get too close with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and we need to call that out. And Benny Thompson, he is right there with them.
Visiting with Mike Hurst, got a couple of minutes left. I made some notes this morning, and I was, it was the whole idea of what's at stake today. What was the closing argument? Where do these 2 candidates, like if you were really being objective, like, okay, biggest positions, that they've campaigned on, where they stand on them. And just kind of the list of topics, I was like, okay, economy. What is an opportunity economy versus one of the answers? I'm getting long-winded here. Can you hang for one more segment?
Absolutely.
Or do you need to split?
No, we're good.
I think this is actually an interesting conversation. One of the things that struck me with Donald Trump when talking about how he was going to get the economy, it's actually another position that he thinks will jumpstart the economy, and that's energy production. And, talking about us becoming less energy independent on others, drilling, getting natural gas and oil flowing, creating jobs, therefore driving down prices at the gas pump, therefore driving down prices related to transportation of food, and the trickle-down effect, to use a sometimes polarizing term there, if you don't like trickle-down economy and Ronald Reagan, I guess that bothers you, that was kind of the engine by which we start to get the economy going in the right direction. It was a fascinating response to me, as opposed to just, we're going to cut taxes, or we're going to give you this credit or that credit.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
Well,
we can talk about it on the next segment.
Yeah, we'll pick up the conversation. I threw a lot out there in a short amount of time.
Lance is playing the music, man. Yeah. He's playing the music.
Mike knows the drill. This is the Gallo Radio Show on Super Talk Mississippi. We're back with you right after this. Ricky in Aberdeen got in and out in 5 minutes this morning. So did Jeremy in Columbia at the Expo Center. Dre in Greenville says, active duty Air Force here. Have you seen the reports that the Pentagon did not ensure enough absentee ballots were allocated for military bases and troops this election cycle? I made the decision to change my voter registration to Missouri when I moved here a couple of years ago to be able to vote in person for this exact reason. No matter the winner of this cycle, this issue needs to be fixed.
Amen. God, that's horrible. That is absolutely horrible.
It just doesn't make any sense not to get Election Day right.
Well, it may make sense if the Democrats don't want our military members to vote. So, sadly.
Mike Hurst is with us. I kind of opined before the break, and I think there might have been a question tucked in there somewhere. Yeah, what was the question in all of this? But no, I mean, so economy, immigration, and border security. I don't know that it's been a huge topic in this election, but military and strength. I think the focus on the military conversation, at least on the Trump side, has been about strength in military, peace through strength,
Absolutely.
Which is more of kind of going back to the way that Ronald Reagan approached our military setup. Obviously, global security and respect is on the ballot. And that's an interesting argument that the Harris campaign has made. In the debate, she was, you're a joke. Leaders don't respect you. They hope Donald Trump wins because they can treat him like a puppet. It seems to be quite the opposite. And then energy and environmental concerns kind of seem to have been the biggest topics this cycle.
Yeah. I agree. And when I went around the state this past year, the first thing that I told folks was if I could call the president and just give him one piece of advice, he should begin and end every speech that he gives with, "Are you better today than you were when I was president?" And you saw that towards the end of the cycle. I guess somehow it got back to him. But are you better today than you were when I was president? And Richard, no one in America can say they're better off today than they were when he was president, except for the illegal aliens and the criminals in our country. I mean, you're right. I mean, he is going to do things such as reduce regulation. A lot of folks don't think about regulation unless you're in the legal industry like I am, or unless you're in politics. You don't think about the red tape that adversely affects every American family. A Chicago economics professor came out with a report recently. He said, the amount of red tape that the Biden administration has implemented over the last 3.5 years has contributed almost $50,000 extra dollars burden on the American public. And so it's kind of a hidden tax that nobody really knows about. He's going to reduce that. You mentioned the energy revolution. When he was president, when President Trump was president, our country was energy independent. And it's not that way now because you've had the Biden-Harris administration shut down pipeline construction. You've had her talk about how she's against fracking. All these things to make it harder for we as Americans. They're trying to make everyone drive an electric vehicle, which, ironically is powered by, coal plants and other electricity producers. Back to your issue about, peace through strength. When President Trump was president, we had peace. We had respect. We had enemies around our world fearing America. And we haven't had that over the last 3.5 years. They've been laughing at us. They've been invading other countries. The embarrassing withdrawal from Afghanistan, where we lost service members, where we left all that equipment there, where they're parading around with our equipment. I mean, it's an embarrassment. We're the laughing stock of the world right now. You know, the transgender ideology that has infected the Democratic Party, when Kamala Harris says she wants to use taxpayer funds to pay for sexual gender surgery for illegal aliens. Richard, that is absolutely insane. That is absolutely insane. She wants to abolish ICE. She wants to defund the police. She wants to make it where if you come over the border, it's not a crime. I mean, the policies she's put out, all we as Republicans have to do is talk about these policies.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things, Mike, that Donald Trump has been vilified for is that, you know, he reached out to members in Congress saying, kill the border bill. And you know, you can talk about, well, he's not elected and at the time, and he's trying to make it a campaign issue. The fact of the matter is, it was not a good border bill.
Well, the border bill is a red herring. The border bill is something that Kamala Harris wants people to focus on, when for 3.5 years, she and President Biden had the authority to secure our border.
Could have done it through executive order.
The first thing President Biden and Harris did was rescind all of the executive orders that secured the border when President Trump was in office. So to say this in Congress, that he killed the bill, that's all a bunch of BS. And that's all to distract the American public from the fact that the president and the vice president of the United States have the authority today to secure our border. And for 3.5 years, she as border czar refused to go to the border. She as border czar refused to do anything. This is not negligence, Richard. This is an intentional act to open up our border, to try to flood illegal aliens in this country, to try to give them amnesty, and to try to get them to be permanent Democratic voters.
And
that's
you
all
could make
this
a
is.
pretty compelling argument that it was less of a border bill and more of an amnesty bill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is not about Congress fixing the situation. The president, and I believe President Trump will do this on day one, he will put those executive orders back in place. He will make people wait in Mexico if they're trying to come across our border. He will continue to build the wall. All the things that make us safe, he is going to do on day one with the authority of the President of the United States.
This is not related directly to the election, but I'm curious. Party perspective, your perspective on this. When you have, and it goes back to the conversation we were having about governing, right? If Republicans end up with the presidency, control of the House, control of the Senate, how are you going to get stuff done?
Right.
Because this is your opportunity to make meaningful change.
Right.
When you have majorities, even at the state level, and there's disagreement, right? The governor and the
Absolutely.
lieutenant governor aren't aligned. The Speaker of the House and the lieutenant governor have different opinions on, you know, tax reform and income tax and all of those things. Medicaid expansion, that's something that has been a huge topic here as well. From a party standpoint, what is your role? What is the party's role is there a job where you're supposed to bridge gaps, mend fences, try to help consensus come along and say, you know, let's not lose sight of the forest for the trees?
Yeah, I would view the Mississippi Republican Party as being one whose job is to recruit Republicans to run for office, to help Republicans to get elected to office. And then we as a party have a platform. We have a document that shows our principles, our values, and to remind those who are in elected office as Republicans to, you know, steer towards and hold those values. I mean, if you're going to call yourself a Republican, we need you to stick to the principles and values that we as Republicans believe in. And that's the reason in this country we have a U.S. Constitution to establish our rights as American citizens. But as a party, we have this party platform that enunciates to the public, this is what we as Republicans believe, and this is what we as Republicans expect those who we help to get elected and those who are serving in elected office as Republicans. This is what you should follow, and this is what you should adhere to.
And by the way, even if it's a little bit late in the process, if you're voting today and you still kind of are confused or undecided, go to Donald Trump's campaign page, Kamala Harris's campaign page. They actually lay out what their platform is.
Absolutely.
And you can see this is what we believe in and this is how we want to get done. It takes a little while to read through all of that, but I would argue that it's a fairly worthwhile exercise.
And I would just, again, to your audience, I would just ask yourself this, you know, look at how your life was from 2016 to 2020, and then compare that how your life's been the last 3.5 years. You know, our gas prices were significantly lower. Our bread, our milk, our eggs, all lower when you go to the grocery store. We had unbelievable jobs available. We had wages higher. We had people with more prosperity than I have seen in my lifetime. Compared to the last 3.5 years where everything has been going down, except prices, they've been going up. All the opportunities are disappearing. It seems like for the last 3.5 years, the Biden-Harris administration has focused on this small sect of Democratic voters and ideologies that really don't make sense to the rest of the American public who are just trying to work, take care of their families, and live their lives. And we have to get back to those values, those beliefs that we as Republicans hold dear.
Mike, you've been generous with your time this morning. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Great to see you.
What does the rest of your day look like?
Oh, man. Been up since about 4:20 this morning, going around heading to the headquarters after this. We've got an operations going on there. I've got a number of lawyers on standby throughout the state in constant communications with our election commissioners, our county chairman, the Secretary of State, who I know you just had on. It's going to be a full night and into the wee hours, I would imagine.
Not going to bed early.
Not going to bed
right?
early. I'm going to sleep. Hopefully, sleep in tomorrow. Fingers crossed.
Or early start, late night. You don't want to join us in the 6 o'clock
no,
hour?
I'm going to
tomorrow?
sleep into 5 tomorrow, so I'll see you at 6. Yeah,
there you go. Sounds good. Mike Hurst, chairman of the GOP in Mississippi, former U.S. attorney, joining us on the Gallo Radio Show. Thanks again.
Thanks, Richard. Great.
We'll see you soon.
See you, man.
Mike Hurst. We will wrap up this edition of the Gallo Radio Show with you on this Tuesday morning, Election Day in America, November 5th, 2024. We're back with you right after this. This is the Gallo Radio Show on Super Talk Mississippi.